I've tried to make this video like 3 times and I'm getting so annoyed because my family keeps interrupting. So if I seem crazy, it's because I am. So I'm going to show you some of the new features that me and my oldest have been playing with. So he's got me like this little stream deck. So I can sound like a cop. So there you go. You're under arrest. Or I can sound
like a baby. I'm just a baby teaching about skin. Or maybe I can be
like the evil teacher and be like, do your homework.
or helium. Just like I had some helium. So good fun times.
if I ever have you make a video, please feel free to make it entertaining for me. Okay, I'm going to start with some fun facts. So we're into the integumentary system right now. And the integumentary system is going to be the skin. It's going to be your hair, your nails. That's the integumentary system. So all of these kids are so happy about their skin. We're going to learn more about it. So some fun facts that I wrote down earlier today. Fun facts, Spikes. About 16% of your body weight is your skin. It's the largest organ of the body. The average person has at least 300 million skin cells. So lots of skin cells. If I had $1 for every skin cell, that'd be lots of dollars. I wouldn't have to teach, that's for sure. Fetuses develop fingerprints at about 3 months. That's kind of fun. At 3 months gestation. Your skin, if we laid it out, I made a blanket out of it, it would be about 1.7 square meters. So there you go, fun facts. So let's get into it. Okay, so always with every system, we're going to start with the function. So we did that with muscular and we did that with skeletal. Now we're into the skin. So the very first thing that you should know is that it's a barrier against injury or infection. So the very first thing it does is it protects us when we're under trauma. So let's say you cut your finger. If you cut your finger, the skin actually minimizes the damage that it can make. It basically has some keratinized cells in it that does offer some protection. So, and imagine if we just didn't have skin, what we would look like. It would be kind of gross. So wherever there's warm, moist areas, germs love that. And so having skin basically limits where we have warm, moist openings on our body. Okay, the second thing is we get vitamin D production from this. So when we produce vitamin D, it can up the calcium and phosphate in the small intestine. So that's good for your bones. So a little bit of sunshine every day is actually healthy for you, like 10 to 15 minutes. Is about what you should get every day for vitamin D production. It's healthy to get outside. I don't know if you guys remember outside, but it's so pretty and nice. And then we all love to feel something, don't we? So the third thing is it's a sensory organ. We have little nerve endings that detect things like pressure and pain, and we can feel things like this remote and be like, ooh, that's bumpy. So it's a sensory organ. Another thing that happens is we regulate temperature. So when we're hot, we have some sweat glands within the dermis that secrete liquid and it evaporates and we can get cool from that. Or we also have little hairs that have these little erector pili muscles that will stand on end when you're cold. So we have some temperature regulation. And then finally, we have some melanocyte cells that protect us from UV light. So if you have people that are like closer to the equator, and their ancestors are kind of closer to the equator, there are lots of sunshine. And so they actually have the same number of melanocytes, but it produces a lot more melanin when it's in a hotter place. And so people with dark skin had to acclimate to that kind of environment. And people with lighter skin like mine would have ancestors that needed sun. They actually needed to produce some vitamin D because they were in areas that didn't get as much sun. So it's a UV protectant for us. So good times. We're going to get right into it. We have 3 layers of the skin. There will be a lab about this in class this week. We have 3 distinct layers. The very first is the epidermis. So epi means upon, and dermis is going to be basically this area right here. So this top that's going to be peeled back is the outer layer of skin. It's avascular with no blood vessels, but we do have like live cells at the base that push up, and by the time they're pushed up to the top, they sort of fill up with keratin, so they actually get harder, and it provides like a waterproof barrier up here once they get to the edges. Very cool. So this nice protective covering, and we have a candy lab to kind of show you similarities between skin and a candy. Okay, next level. This is where all the business is happening, really. This is the dermis. So it's basically this large chunk in the middle. And you can see things like there's a hair follicle, and associated with the hair follicle, you'll see oil glands. And associated with the hair follicle, you'll see these little muscles that will actually contract to make this hair stand on end. These are erector pili muscles. You have nerve endings to help detect pressure. And if there's too much pressure, we have nerve endings down here that are like hey, you're going too hard here. So nerves, all these yellow vessels or yellow, I guess we could call them organs. Groups of cells together is a tissue. Tissues together is an organ. These are nerves. The yellow, these ones, these wormy looking things are sweat glands. The red vessels are arteries. The blue vessels are veins. So just lots happening right here in the dermis. Okay, then we're to the deepest layer. So if we're going superficial to deep, it goes epidermis, dermis, and then the subcutaneous layer. So we're down into this section right here. And it's mostly composed of adipose tissue, which is fat. And you've got blood vessels that come through there. You've got some nerve endings that are really close to that area. The reason we have adipose tissue there is to serve as kind of an insulator. Having a little bit of insulation is actually super healthy for our organs. So good stuff, subcutaneous layer. Then we're going to get into other features that the skin has. So for example, we have fingernails. So we have all of this epidermis here, and built right into the epidermis is this fingernail. So basically you have new cells happening at the nail root, and they're pushing out, and these are filled up with keratin. They're keratinized, which means they harden. And the purpose of these, if you kind of think of it on animals, is so they can claw things. For us, it's so we can pinch little things and kind of utilize tools. So kind of think of how you use your fingernails. They actually are a pretty good tool, unless you are like this lady and you're like, really am wanting to be in the Guinness Book of World Records. So I'm going to grow them out forever. Just keep growing them out. So I just want to see video of her, like, I don't even know, typing. How do you type? Or what's another thing, like driving? How would you even drive like that? Would be nutty. But to each their own. If that makes you happy, grow your nails out. That's fantastic. You probably don't get a job in healthcare. Okay, some glands of the skin. We have sweat glands, which are called sudoriferous glands, and they look like this one that I'm pointing at here. These wormy looking ones. They will release basically like electrolytes and water, and it will evaporate off the skin, and then we'll feel cooler. And then we also have sebaceous glands, which we're going to get into a little bit. Sudoriferous glands are sweat glands. The primary function is obviously to just keep us cool. So right here, there's one. I want to see if we got 2 here. You have a lot. You have a lot of sweat glands. There's one kind of deep in there. So just keeping us cool. That's what they're doing. If you're a salty sweater, like if you wear a shirt and you get like a white film around it, or you get like a white film on your hat if you wear a hat, that suggests that you're a salty sweater. And if you're a salty sweater and you're exercising for, over 2 hours, you need to make sure you're replacing those electrolytes, because that could be bad. Okay, sebaceous glands are these guys. So they're right with the hair follicle. And in your age group, they're super active. And so you'll have oils released all the time. And sometimes it makes it a little bit too oily on some kids. They might have a little bit of an imbalance that needs to be addressed. But for the most part, you have long, flowy hair. And it's beautiful. And the reason why is it has this sheen from this oil, the sebum that comes from the sebaceous glands, will get right onto the hair and just make it basically not dry out. It doesn't get brittle. It just stays beautiful and flowy. And as you age, those hair follicles and oil glands are less active. So that's fun. Good fun times. But basically the function is to keep hair from drying out. We can have some issues with oil glands. So in your age group, we could have just overactive oil glands, which we'll talk about acne probably next time. But sebaceous glands, kind of think of healthy, flowy hair in your case. And then hair is composed of dead or keratinized skin cells. There are some weird ideas about why hair kind of developed on humans the way that it did. There was one I heard that I was like, okay, that's such a weird theory, or it wouldn't even be a theory, like a hypothesis, I guess. But they said that in like the savannas of Africa or something, I don't even remember. They said that they thought that there were bodies of water that humans would have to cross, and so they thought that growing long hair on the head would be a way for like babies to hold on as they cross. And I'm like, that's a weird thing to think about. Most likely, it's always been about protecting us from the sun. So if you kind of think about vulnerable areas, we'll talk about skin cancer. If the sun's hitting your head and there's no hair there, you're gonna have a real problem with skin cancer. Sunburn, those kinds of things. So it's basically just to protect us from sun. And if you look around the eyes, we have extra hair around the eyeball. We have extra hair around just above our eyes. That's a susceptible place. We have an eyeball that's really susceptible to foreign objects. And so hair can trap foreign particles and we can get rid of it. Same thing in our noses and even in our ears. We have hairs that will trap foreign objects so they won't get in, because they love warm, moist environments. And so they're just trying to keep those out. Okay, so here are some of the hair structures. It kind of shows you like what's associated with the hair. And we talked about the sebaceous gland being there. We talked about like the erector pili muscle. We also have a little bit of a blood supply. So you can see it right here at the root of the hair. And basically we have growth cycles of hair. So we can have what's called it starts with an anagen phase. And typically that lasts about 2 to 6 years. It's a growth phase. And it will have a healthy blood supply at the base, and it's going to be pushing out the hair. It gets more keratinized as it goes out. It's dead when it comes out, which is nice when we get a haircut. The average person has somewhere between 100,000 and 150,000 hairs, and we lose about 50 to 100 strands a day. So kind of more fun fact spikes. There's, after the anagen phase, there's what's called a catagen phase. So this is kind of a transition phase where it kind of moves away from the blood supply. And once it moves away from the blood supply, it's going to be pushed out. That's a dead hair. We're done with it and we're going to start over. So then there's a telogen phase, there's like a rest phase, and it starts over again at the anagen phase. So interesting fact that once a hair is pulled out or a hair dies and leaves, there's going to be a new hair that begins. So fun fact also, Vikes, if you cut it in half here, kind of looks like a gobstopper. So there's that. Okay, we're to diseases and disorders, which means we're going to finish that up next time. So there will be another little part to this assignment other than just the first part of the notes. But I'll leave you with this because Mark Twain said it. It was kind of a funny quote that I found while I was doing some research for this. He says, "The finest clothing made is a person's own skin, but of course society demands more than this. So we've always kind of demanded like we cover up the skin, which, you know, most of us look better with a little clothes on. But that was kind of a funny quote. So yeah, we'll get to diseases and disorders next time. And that should all be online. We're just going to do all of the skin notes online. So let me know if you're having issues with any of the assignments. If you're behind, please understand that I'm workable. I want you to be successful. If there are assignments you've missed points on, I will have put notes in the assignment. You can go back and fix it. I always want you to fix it. The goal is for you to get better and at the end be the best. So just keep plugging away. So we will end there. Let's end in the hallway like I'm leaving class. Okay, guys, so have a great day. See you later.